So, here we are, Bob Dold, born in Evanston Hospital. We'll start from the beginning. This may take 20 minutes. Graduated from New Trier, Denison University. Graduated from the Kellogg School of Management, got an MBA. Just saw Don Hyder today at a funeral. That has nothing to do with any of this. Let's just say what it is. He is in one of the most hotly contested congressional districts in the country. It is a district, you know, we don't have much competition in politics because the people who get elected want to stay elected, so they draw a map so no one can challenge them. Not the 10th district. It's and it costs a few bucks to run there, I would assume. I think you could probably call it in ROM dollars. So he won, he lost, now he won again, right? I'll stop pretty soon. As the great Meatloaf would say, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Ladies and gentlemen, the congressman from the 10th district, Bob Dold.
Well, I want to thank the good doctor for coming up and pinch hitting on the introduction. And yes, it is true. We've won, we've lost, and we've won. And let me just tell you, winning is better. I want to thank the City Club of Chicago for inviting me here today. And just looking over the roster, you've got an impressive group of folks that is going to be speaking before you over the course of the next several months. I particularly want to thank Horizon Pharma and Mayor Brown and, of course, Union Pacific Railroad for their sponsorship of today's event. So they asked me and they said, listen, you can come and talk about anything. I said, well, that's pretty dangerous for giving me kind of free rein. But what I thought I'd do is just kind of give you not only an update, but kind of a vision of what I think our governing philosophy would be. One of the things that I often ask people is what keeps you up at night? And you ask that question to enough people, and trust me, I've asked that question to literally thousands of people over the course of the last period of time. It really helps to put away a lot of the noise and brush it aside of politics and really focus on what people in Washington and I would argue Springfield need to be focusing on. What I hear most often from people is their concern with the basics, how to put food on the table, job security, how to pay for quality health care, and how to ensure that their kids have access to top quality education and more work opportunities, how to save for retirement, and how to care for their parents as they age. I also hear anxieties about the United States and our leadership in the world, the long-term security of our ally Israel, the increased aggression from ISIS, Iran, and even Russia. Put simply, people are concerned about making life work, ensuring safety for their families and providing opportunity for their children. They're frustrated that leaders in government just don't get it, that they're more interested in putting politics first than finding pragmatic and common sense solutions. My philosophy is guided largely by my background as a small business owner. I run a pest control company, and trust me, in running a service business, the customer isn't happy if you're not getting the job done. Washington, I believe, is in desperate need of more people who understand small business, who understand customer service-oriented mentality of doing what is necessary to get things done. In short, Washington needs more people that are not afraid to compromise. In business and in politics, we draw strength from partnering together and identifying areas of common ground. If we refuse to do anything unless we get 100% of what we want, that's a recipe, in my opinion, for inaction and lost opportunity. The common sense principle, the importance of bipartisanship and working together to get big things done is what certainly guides my approach to governing. I've taken tremendous pride in the fact that I've been consistently ranked as one of the most independent bipartisan members of the United States Congress. And I believe this represents the values of the 10th Congressional District at its best. Today, I'd like to share with you what I believe Congress can do to help. There are undoubtedly, we find ourselves in very challenging times. The economy's not where it needs to be. Frankly, we need more jobs, more economic growth, more opportunity for upward mobility, and a long-term sustainable plan to upgrade our infrastructure. Families are struggling to make ends meet, to pay bills, to save and ensure high-quality educational opportunities for their families. 45 million Americans, nearly 15%, continue to live in poverty. Our national debt, which currently stands at above $18 trillion, is scheduled to skyrocket. And if we don't do something, and if we ignore the problem, that's exactly what it will do. This, I believe, compromises our ability to hold our commitments to our children, and it compromises our military's ability to meet its commitments around the globe, to keep our families, our communities, and our nation safe. ISIS now has more fighters, more money, more land than Al-Qaeda did on 9/11. The cycle of open-ended extensions and never-ending concessions to the Iranian regime has seen our national and global security unilaterally weakened. Our tax, immigration, and healthcare systems remain broken and are in need of real leadership if we are to enact much-needed reforms. And small businesses continue to face uncertainties about regulation and access to capital, which limit their ability to invest, take risk, and grow. But we can, I believe, overcome these obstacles and overcome these challenges if we are able to work together. Last week, I was honored to be able to be named to the House Ways and Means Committee, and I'm extremely honored to have this opportunity, not for any self-serving purposes, but because of the wide-ranging jurisdiction of the House Ways and Means Committee that will put me at the front lines of advancing ideas to address the economic concerns that the people throughout the 10th District and beyond have shared with me. Rising cost of food, how to pay for health care, and how they care for their parents as they get older. Our greatest economic challenges can only be overcome by rallying around, I believe, a positive agenda that promotes economic growth, which is both durable and that provides increased opportunity for everyone. Advancing tax reform is obviously central to this vision. The need to reform our nation's broken tax code only gets more urgent by the day, and we need to reform both the individual and the corporate tax codes. The current U.S. tax code is more than 70,000 pages. It's too complex, it's unfair to families and employers of all sizes, and is extremely costly for small businesses to navigate. Rather than a streamlined, efficient tax code that provides relief to families and small businesses, one that allows Chicagoland's many great global companies to better compete internationally, our current system is inefficient, outdated, wasteful, and is a drag on our nation's economic potential. The seemingly impenetrable nature of our tax code is why over 80% of Americans believe that our tax system caters simply to the largest corporations and businesses. Meanwhile, the reality, as you know, is that small businesses face punitive federal tax rates of up to nearly 40%. And U.S.-based corporations are forced to compete on an unlevel playing field on the international stage with the highest corporate income tax in the industrialized world. Further, the way the United States treats its foreign earnings of U.S. companies is outdated and belongs to an era where the United States was or faced little international competition. Our current system of international taxation is a system that traps earnings abroad and really puts U.S. businesses at a disadvantage here at home. We need a simpler, fair tax code that replaces lobbyist loopholes with globally competitive tax rates that help keep and create more jobs here in the United States rather than continuing to drive them overseas. We need to relieve the burden on middle-class families so that more and more can afford to send their children to college. And we need to not only even the international playing field, but give American businesses and the American ingenuity a leg up by making business environment here in our nation second to none. As a small business owner and a representative for the fourth largest manufacturing district in our nation, these issues are certainly near and dear to my heart. But regardless of background or district, easing the burden on our families and making America more competitive are common sense reforms that we should all be able to get behind, regardless of political party. We need to create more opportunities for domestic manufacturers. In this respect, efforts to promote international trade, I believe, are critical. 95% of our world's consumers are outside of the United States. Illinois is in an especially strong position to benefit by reaching these new marketplaces. The 10th Congressional District today has over 100,000 manufacturing employees, and we are currently sending over $6.5 billion in goods and services abroad annually. Congress has the opportunity to expand these export opportunities and the jobs supported by them by passing bipartisan Congressional Trade Priorities and Accountability Act, also known as the Trade Promotion Authority. The United States is currently negotiating two major trade agreements, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or TTIP, between the United States and Europe, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the TPP. The TPP would be a trade agreement among 12 nations in North America, South America, the Australia-Asian Pacific region. It is an ambitious agreement that brings together nations which represent over 40% of the world's GDP. However, before we can take advantage of these trade opportunities, Congress must pass Trade Promotion Authority. This legislation aids the administration in concluding negotiations by guaranteeing that the agreement receives an up or down vote in the United States Congress, while ensuring that the American people have a voice in the negotiations throughout the congressionally mandated negotiating objectives. The Bipartisan Congressional Trade Priorities and Accountability Act passed out of the Ways and Means Committee just last week and will come before the House and the Senate shortly. Now, given my focus on transportation issues, I believe we have a really important job of investing in our nation's infrastructure. I look forward to working to identify new ways to innovate so that we can meet our nation's infrastructure needs. As you know, the needs are tremendous. They're tremendous nationally, they're tremendous locally. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, the United States infrastructure today gets a rating of a D+ and needs about $3.6 trillion in investment by 2020. The infrastructure in Illinois is maybe just a little bit better, and it gets a C-. This isn't just an abstract funding issue, it affects the day-to-day lives of literally everyone in our community. This affects everything. It affects our bridges, our waterways, our railways, our roads, our highways, mass transit, aviation, our drinking water, our energy infrastructure, literally everything. We want to talk about how do we grow our economy. Our infrastructure is one sure way to be able to do it. When people from the suburbs commute to Chicago, outdated track switches create congestion, slowing down commutes by as much as 15 minutes one way. That's 30 minutes a day or 10 and a half hours a month if you're a regular commuter. It's an entire workday. In the area roads and expressways, just remember the number of hours of congestion. I think UPS actually factored it that 5 minutes of idling time costs UPS $100 million. Not to mention just the hours it takes away from families or from productivity in business. From the business's perspective, when companies are choosing where to put their headquarters, they're asking, how am I going to get my raw materials in? How are we going to get our finished product out? How are we going to get our people to the businesses that we have here? Well, 6 out of 7 major railroad lines pass through Chicago. No news to the Union Pacific that's over there. Right now, it takes 48 hours to bring a rail car from Los Angeles to Chicago. It takes almost the same amount of time to go from one side of the Chicago to the other side of Chicago before it can move on its way. 25% of all the freight in the nation comes through the Chicago terminal. Is that a competitive advantage for Chicago? I would argue absolutely that it is. How are we going to attract more businesses if we don't have the infrastructure that's going to be able to support them? Unfortunately, the resources to finance our infrastructure have been dwindling. As the gas tax revenue has been unable to keep up with the spending needs, since 2008, Congress has injected $65 billion directly from the United States Treasury into the Highway Trust Fund, just in order to meet its obligations. Long term, I know that we need new innovative ways to bolster our Highway Trust Fund and to pay for our infrastructure spending. And this has to include, I believe, mass transit. According to the Congressional Budget Office, there is a $15 billion annual gap between our current highway and transportation programs and the expected revenue to come into the Highway Trust Fund. I have to tell you, I am committed to exploring new ideas which will be vital in reaching our long-term objectives so that we can have a long-term surface transportation bill. More immediately, we're facing a shortfall in the Highway Trust Fund this summer, and will require about $6 to $7 billion in order for us to get through the end of the fiscal year in September. The ability to provide resources for our nation's infrastructure are among the most important challenges I believe that we face today. This is vital to keeping the United States and the Chicago region competitive. While we've spoken a little bit before about middle-class families, I'd also wanted to touch on low-income families. Our official poverty and our poverty rate today stands at 14.5%. That's over 45 million Americans that are living in poverty. For a family of four, that means the total family income is below $24,000 a year. That's for a family of four. For all the broad claims that we make about the United States, especially considering the American dream, it is unacceptable that we have allowed this many people to fall into poverty. With last year being the 50th anniversary of President Johnson's war on poverty, there has been a tremendous amount of research on poverty programs that are working, as well as those that are failing to meet their goals. For too long, this has been considered a partisan issue. This isn't true, and I won't allow it to be the case any longer. Helping those in our country who need our help and need our help the most is a common sense issue. And I look forward to working in a bipartisan way to reinvigorating our nation's approach to anti-poverty programs. Finally, we must focus our efforts to fix our health care system that I believe is broken at this stage. I'm pleased that Congress already this year has enacted legislation to replace the flawed reimbursement model for physicians treating Medicare patients. This is an issue that has had 17 short-term fixes since 1997. Each year Congress has continued to knock this down the road, a short-term fix after short-term fix, creating more uncertainty for physicians. Congress was finally able to break through that gridlock on a bipartisan basis, and it passed the House 392 votes. There's obviously much more work to be done in the healthcare space if we want to drive down costs, as well as increase quality and access to care. Among the issues that I believe Congress must urgently address are the rising premiums and deductibles under the Affordable Care Act, along with the law's massive, unacceptable cuts to Medicare programs. I've always maintained that the Affordable Care Act was the wrong approach for America's healthcare system and opposed it from the start. However, I believe the only way that we're going to move beyond simply talking about the law's many flaws and finally deliver solutions for the American people is through bipartisan reforms that can pass both chambers and go to the President's desk for signature. We should focus our efforts on finding common sense solutions that drive down costs, restore access to care, and make health care work for everyone. My ultimate hope is that we can build a bipartisan support for ideas that embrace greater market-based solutions and promote innovation. With innovation in these 5 areas, taxes, manufacturing and trade, infrastructure, anti-poverty, and healthcare reform as the building blocks, I hope that we can chart a new path forward for Washington. My vision centers on a bipartisan path forward for our country, with a commitment to rebuilding a coalition focused on pragmatic debt reduction, protecting our nation's most vulnerable, increasing opportunity, and fostering economic growth. In short, I believe that we need to focus on what we agree on rather than what we disagree on, because at the end of the day, there is so much more that unites us than divides us. And if we can put people ahead of politics, we should all be able to find the common ground and unite around a positive agenda that promotes economic growth and opportunity for everyone. We should all be able to work together to create an environment that helps small businesses expand and create jobs in our communities. Divided as our country may seem at times, we can still unite and aspire towards a better tomorrow. We are fortunate to have so many natural advantages in the Chicago area. Great communities in which to raise a family, quality schools, highly skilled and a diversified workforce, and a transportation hub that sits right at our nation's crossroads. We can be the economic engine that leads the entire Midwest and revitalizes all of our communities. We can be a place that promotes thoughtful, independent ideas, which brings people together. That's why the area stands as a source of hope for so many, and why its representatives in Washington need to be capable of rising above the partisanship to lead our country forward. I'm grateful for the opportunity to address those challenges, and I want to address them head on. At the end of the day, leadership and service is not about excuses. It's about knowing when to set partisanship aside and work together for the best interests of our communities and for our country. We may not all agree on every issue or every policy prescription, but we do all love this country, and we appreciate thoughtful solutions for our nation's problems. Because of this approach, our community is uniquely positioned to help break through the gridlock in Washington, D.C., and deliver bipartisan solutions that this country so desperately needs. I want to thank you all for giving me an opportunity to come and talk with you today, and I hope that we can answer some of your questions with your permission. Thank you so much.
If you have a question, raise your hand. Young Jack will pick it up. We have a question, of course, it was handed to me before you spoke, so obviously it has nothing to do with what you said, but you can handle it. Michael Bauer, where are you, Mike?
It's over here.
Right over there waiting. Regarding the Iranian talks, nuclear talk, the President and the Secretary of State repeatedly state, no deal is better than a bad deal. What are a few provisions that would make this a bad deal? There you go.
Perfect. Well, let me just say, I think that as you look around the globe, the world is asking a very simple question, and that's, where is America? You know about the fiscal deficit, you know about the jobs deficit, nobody's talking about the leadership deficit. And as we look at the Iran deal, I believe that Iran is probably the greatest threat we have to our own national security today. This is a nation that has said time and again that they want to drive Israel into the sea. They want to wipe them off the face of the map, that they are the little Satan, which naturally begs the question, who is the big Satan? I had an opportunity to talk to some experts in Cambridge, and I asked them, has Iran in the past ever kept a deal? Their response was, if they do, this will be the first time. The framework that's been put in place, and again, my concern is that the administration's stated objectives originally was that Iran will never receive the ability to create a nuclear weapon. My fear is that where we stand today in the administration is that those objectives have changed dramatically. One of containment as opposed to making sure that they don't have that. And so I do believe that, yes, we want a diplomatic solution. I'm not sure that the framework that has been proposed thus far, that still leaves Iran as a threshold nuclear state, is the appropriate one. And again, we're giving billions of dollars of relief to a nation that is the greatest state sponsor of terror the world has seen. Whether it be Hezbollah, Hamas, whether it be the Muslim Brotherhood, whether it's, what's going on and their efforts going more towards, Central and Latin America. This is a huge concern, and one that I believe we cannot sit idly by and allow them to be able to have centrifuges that spin, that allow them to have, I guess the framework right now is we want to delay their ability for a breakout so that before they can actually have a nuclear weapon. We haven't done anything with regard to ICBM technology. Now, why does a nation need ICBMs? Intercontinental ballistic missiles? It's not for peace necessarily. And so the agreement has nothing to do with Iran's ICBM capabilities either. So I do question what's going on. We do desperately want a diplomatic solution. I do not believe the framework as it's laid out right now is going to be a good one for the United States or our ally, Israel, and other allies for that matter. It will set off, if they were to get a nuclear weapon, would set off an arms race in the Middle East that would be extraordinarily dangerous, a very dangerous neighborhood that we have right now, and that would be, I think, devastating for the security of the world.
Congressman, we have another question that you didn't talk about. We could have just started this. You'd save time. Lauren Skolnick from Edelman. Where are you, Lauren? Okay. What is your view on ethanol and specifically the renewable fuel standard?
I think if we talk about renewable fuels, we have to talk about innovation, right? What are we doing to innovate to make sure that we're more energy independent? One of the organizations that I'm a part of is an organization called No Labels that is looking to try to focus on big picture things, and one of those is how do we become more energy independent as a nation. And that's one of those things that Republicans and Democrats alike should be in favor of, because we don't want to necessarily be reliant on other nations for our energy. And so as we look at ethanol, I think that, again, the question becomes on subsidies going there. And what we really want to talk about is how do we have a fuel standard that enables people to be able to use many different things, whether it be natural gas, whether it be ethanol. We just want to make sure that we're using a market-based approach. The other thing I will tell you is that, I've been in the past and still remain to be in favor of using, our tax code to be able to talk about innovation, whether that be wind, solar, geothermal, and the like. What are we doing? What's the next new thing that comes across the table? We want to encourage that innovation here. And so energy is one of those things that we all need, certainly one of those things that we want to make sure that we're more energy independent, that we're more energy efficient as well. Who's got another question? You got written ones or anybody? You got it? All right, Doc. Come on.
Boy, you got on the Ways and Means Committee and you break the rules already. You're a lot calmer. You're with the big dogs. And who was the last person we had from Ways and Means, Mr. Doherty? Yeah, absolutely. Let me just throw that in. He's feeling too good about himself, right? By the way, he always brought a present for Chicago, Mr. Rostenkowski. A helicopter, a something. All right, I'm sure the 10th District will be in good shape. This is from our traditional, somewhat to the right of anybody I've ever met in my life, Mark Watermiller, who asks the same question every time, and we get the same answer every time, but it's tradition. Would you support a federal bailout of the Illinois pension crisis? You don't have to answer that.
No, I think that this was something that came out before, actually, in prior Congresses, and I don't believe that you would find much support in the United States Congress from other states to try to bail out Illinois for fiscal mismanagement. So as much as the Illinois delegation may be trying to help, I don't think that would be one that would pass or even actually get a vote.
Okay, a late entrance from Frank Paul. The New York Times, I'm sure you'll like this one. The New York Times had an article last week on the Clinton Foundation. Well, they were the ones who talked about it. Just throw that out, see who's paying attention, and most of you, you're waiting for your 1 o'clock meeting. Okay, the New York Times had an article last week on the Clinton Foundation. Will the Congress investigate this matter?
I don't know that the Congress will investigate this or not, to be honest. And frankly, this is stuff that's coming out right now. We've got investigative reporters, whether it be the New York Times, the Washington Post, or others that will probably spend a fair amount of time trying to dig in and find out more about this. I think the Congress right now has been focused more on the Benghazi investigation and try to figure out where that goes. And my hope is that will wrap up. And that, I think, is vital, that it is not have any sort of political hint to it, because that would be, I think, the wrong approach.
Well, not that we ever bring politics into the City Club, as you well know. However, the moderator has a short question. Have you made an endorsement for the Republican nomination for president in 2016? And if not, who do you think is going to win? Take your time.
I mean, as we look at the interesting, I think the positive for it is that there's a huge field. There's a huge field of people, and the thing that I look at and like is that there's young people as well that are getting engaged and in the mix. And so, regardless of who comes, to be the nominee, my hope is that they have executive experience, someone that's met a budget and a payroll, someone that's dealt with the legislature in the past, that's had to work with Republicans and Democrats alike, someone that's had to make tough executive decisions. That's what the country needs right now. So we need someone that has gone through that and had that executive experience. I don't have a horse in the race at this point in time in terms of, who is it going to be. I would be, if I had to pick front runners right now, I would probably, for the Republican nomination, say the front runners were probably Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, and Marco Rubio. But again, there's vast majority of the candidates probably have not even announced yet. So I do think that we're a long ways away, and you're going to see a lot more emphasis placed on presidential politics in Washington, D.C. My hope is that we don't let that take our eye off the ball of what we need to do in Washington, and we continue to focus on trying to pass legislation that's important for our constituents, that we can actually move things forward. And we are starting to see some of that momentum. I think people are recognizing that they're interested in trying to make sure that the United States Congress can govern, which is really important.
How about a big round of applause? We got parting gifts.